So the first step here then, let me start over, is to lay your newsprint down within just 3 millimeter lip right there, paint off of the paper onto that, and then just close that, pull your newsprint out of the way. Make sure you pull your newsprint out first and then give that a press, flip it over, and do that last signature the same way. If you have glue on, just off the side here, that might be a little easier for this project. This is just a piece of scrap paper, and then brush that glue. And press it down. If you have clips, you could give it, you could put some clips on it. I think I've got some clips in here somewhere too, up on the top. So I'm just going to use these binder clips. Got one more in here somewhere.
Is that on the first and the last one?
I'm sorry?
Is that on the first and the last?
The first signature and the last signature. In between that first signature and the second one, and what would be. I think you have 5 signatures, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So between the first and the second, and between the fifth and the fourth, I guess. And I'm just going to put these here just to hold it while you're doing it. This string here is a little too long in that space for this, but so I'm just going to cut it down just a little bit. But I could easily work with that. I don't know if I can. There we go. So, have we glued the spine before? We did this with the drum leaf, I think, right? Okay. So it's essentially the same thing. We're just going to, actually I'm working with glue from this pool of glue right here, and I'm just going to paint that glue, brush that glue, in between, and fill in those spots. PVA glue is really flexible when it dries, so this will help. It'll keep all of those signatures together. It'll help keep your binding thread if it comes loose, or if it if it got cut or frayed somehow. It would help to prevent it from coming loose. All the way down the edge. I'm actually going to, because there's some spots in here that I just can't quite get, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of extra glue with the glue bottle, just directly feeding it right into that space, and then spread it out. And I'm just using I'm just going to put those binder clips back on it. But look, I'm keeping quite a bit of space in between those. Just trying to keep that pressure right at the top, not way down. And then I don't want to get it too close because I don't want it to glue to the binder clip, right? So keep it up off the edge just a little bit. I'm going to go back to this one here because it's been sitting the longest. That's pretty tacky. Now it's time for a second coat. After that has dried with that second coat, those papers aren't moving because that first one was dried. So I'm just going to put those binder clips away. Do you have any of the papers? I'm just going to set this aside and let it dry. So once you've got that glued, once you put that second coat on, just kind of set it aside. It's only going to take a couple minutes for that to dry sufficiently for us to move on to the next step. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to take those two manila pieces of paper that you pulled out of that box. We're going to fold them in half. And I'm just going to use my bone folder to give it a nice crease. Now, one of the things that we are, with the assembly of these books, that we don't have to worry about is the order of the book or the directionality of the book. So we don't have to worry about that today because these are just white pages. If you had printed your pages and you sewed them together, you'd have to take great care making sure that all of the pages were put together the right way, that you sewed all the signatures so that it's in the right order the whole way, and things aren't turned upside down from one signature to the next. And then when you glue the cover on, to make sure that you glue the text block into the cover the right way, so when you open up your book, it's not glued in upside down. Those are a whole bunch of things that we don't have to worry about today. If you do decide to do this book down the line, just keep in mind that those are all things that you have to consider as you're working through this. These are really, I think making sketchbooks is a lot of fun because you just don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. These are all blank pages. You don't have to worry about that. So we're going to put a little bit of glue on these pages. These are the end papers, by the way. And these are going to get glued to the outside of so they're going to get glued on this side and the front and the back signatures. You'll notice here that I am sliding that up to about 3 millimeters, the way that we glued the inside. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to take this piece of newsprint, lay it down at about that 3 millimeter mark. And then load up my brush, and then I'm going to paint starting on the newsprint and painting towards the folded edges. For me, it's painting straight up. This way I don't put any glue underneath the newsprint. I can take that off. A nice straight line. I'm going to move these off to the side and move that gluey piece of paper. I'm setting those off to the side. That glue is going to dry. I'll be able to use it again here in just a moment. Then I'm going to bring this page in and line it up with the bottom and the folded edge or the spine part here. And because we're using full strength PVA glue, it's going to glue really quickly. Again, I'm just matching the edges up. Now you'll notice, I think yours are probably are they perfect to your book, or are they bigger? They're larger than yours? Like they're fitting out longer than this, right? Is that right? Okay. That's fine. That's good. We're going to trim these in just a moment so that everything is beautifully cut.
So this one on top of this.
Right, so this gets glued to one on the front and one on the back side, right at the very edge. And then I'm just using my bone folder to burnish that and make sure that everything is in good shape there. That we're going to focus on while we're just letting this glue all set for a few more minutes before we go and trim this is to make something called a headband. And if you look at manufactured books, oftentimes when you look at the spine of a book, when you look down at the end of it, you'll see a little decorative piece at the top. I'm sorry? So it does function to hide those the signatures. It's also can be a decorative piece. So I'm going to pass around some twine here. I want you to take a piece that's about 6-8 inches long. Just cut a piece off and pass it down. And because it's decorative, I'm actually on this book here. I'm going to use this. I don't know what color this is, teal-ish, whatever that color happens to be. And then this yellow will be the sort of the highlight. So this is going to be that decorative part of for the header. So all I need to do is cut off a small piece of material here. I'm just going to use my, let's see if I can do it. How can I do this here? Like, start trying to keep it out of the glue. Just move the glue and then I can do it. There we go. I'm just going to cut a piece off here. And to make the header, I'm just going to, so I've got this strip here. You can use whatever book cloth you're using. And it doesn't matter a whole lot. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right here in the middle. And I'm going to take this string, I'm actually going to cut it in half one more time. And then I'm going to fold it in half. So this is, this piece is about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch wide. I'm going to twist this string. And fold that down. And then use my bone folder to crease that. And then I'll do the same thing on this. Twist the string. Pull that up and burnish it. These will end up going on the edge here, and we'll trim them down so they fit in just a little bit. Oh my God, I've got glue everywhere. Now, we're going to go into the other side and use the paper shear, and we're going to trim down the edge here to get these, to get that open edge, like just perfectly smooth, and then the top and the bottom edges smooth, evenly cut too. If you need to do this at home, so this is for everyone who doesn't have their stuff, their signatures today. If you do not have your signatures with you today, this process can be done at home in a couple of different ways. The first way is if you've got one of these quick squares like this, you will find something that has a square edge. Let me pull this down here to the table. Ooh, look at those orange shoelaces. There we go. So you've got this so that it is up against your cutting surface and the table, and it's not going to move around. Then you can take this book. You want to make sure that you're cutting, and it's not quite, it's thick enough to where now I'm just going to line it up with the bottom edge of the book. And then you will take a very sharp utility knife to cut this. No X-Acto knives on this one. The reason being is these blades are flexible. When I push on this, it bends. All right, and so as you're pushing here, as you're cutting down, it's going to bend and flex a little bit. And because it's bending and flexing, that means that every time you cut through these pages, it's going to cut in it's going to cut in a different space. So then that means that you're going to have uneven pages, even though you're trying to cut them down nice and tight. So this is not a sharp blade. So I'm only going to pretend to cut this so that you can see what I'm going to do here. I'm holding the square with my thumb, pushing it forward on the book, holding the book so it doesn't move, and then I make multiple. I'm only looking to cut through one page at a time as I go through this. I'm not pushing hard. I'm just gradually cutting the whole way through. And on a book like this, you're going to need most of that blade to cut all the way through there. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Since you're cutting multiple pages, do you take the cut page and you push it aside?
Right. Yeah, so as you cut through, they'll fall off and just push the pages to the side. If they don't fall off, it's usually because you didn't get all the way through the back side here, where that fold is. And so then you'll come back through, and when you're cutting that second one, then it's likely you'll cut through that hinge here. Don't pull them off though. Cut them with the razor blade, with the utility knife, so that it gets a nice clean cut. Otherwise, you'll end up with like a frayed corner. Now, since we're putting these on the edge, we probably won't see that anyway, but you'll know it's there. All right, so this is one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to clamp this into some sort of, these are just pieces of plywood. Clamp it in. This one's a little harder to manage. You can see why, because they like to move around on you. And then you would position your book I have my line there. You can. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but from where I was dragging the utility knife across in the first place, like that. Tighten it down so it doesn't move, and then you can do the same thing here, cutting through. Or if you have a razor blade, then you can lay that knife you can't quite get you lay your utility knife right against the board and just continue to pull and cut through. A couple options for you. This one, using this is I think probably the most convenient thing to use. If you if you don't have one that has this square on it, then you're just going to have to hold everything very carefully. You might need to, might be a good idea to clamp your work down to the surface so that it doesn't move while you do that. Because our shop has a paper shear, that's what we're going to do. You don't have to worry about any of this. So we'll get a nice clean edge on the front side and then on the tops and the bottoms here. So feel your glue. Mine isn't tacky anymore. Is yours tacky? A little tacky?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see what this one is. This was the last one I did. Ooh, yeah, this one's a little tacky still. All right. Now, let's go take these over to the other side, and let's get those.
Well, I've never gotten into a fight with anybody who's not my sister.
That's
I'll be honest with you. I literally used to run into my sister's bedroom and it'd be like fucking 10. She should have been. I would like literally jump onto her, like fully leap onto her. And like, we're like the same size, so it was really fun.
How long did
How long? All right, so now we've got, after you've trimmed your edges, and you've got these clean edges all the way around, you may notice that there is a little bit of fraying on the edges. Even with the paper shear, there's still a few spots where the paper didn't quite cut totally toward just a tiny bit on the very edges, and that's because it's not an incredibly sharp razor. It needs to be sharpened. If you are using your utility knife or an X-Acto knife to cut these, then you may have uneven edges the whole way. So the next step for you on that is just to get out a piece of sandpaper. Sand in the direction away that it won't tear. If I'm coming this way, I might grab a piece of paper and tear it down. So I'm pushing away so that I'm breaking those pieces off the edge. Oops, I still have a little bit of a piece right there. There we go. And if you're all, and when I'm sanding, I'm staying right on that edge. I'm not hitting the flat surface of the paper. All I'm worried about is just this very edge piece. So that's why I have my sandpaper folded, a little more control over it, and I'm just hitting that very, like the corner, the topmost point of that edge, just to break it. There we go. That side looks good. That looks good. Just needed hit a couple spots. Sandpaper works great for smoothing that out. the next step here is we're going to reinforce the spine on our books. And the way that we're going to do that, is we're going to take a piece of mulberry paper. You could use just about any paper you wanted to, but just understand that the thicker the paper is, the more likely it is going to show through when you do your paste down. When you paste this down, if it has a thick edge on it, then when you burnish it, you're going to see that crease on the paper. So I'm looking to do a sheet and then I'm going to kind of measure where this is. Do I have a pencil handy? I'm going to be really scientific about this. I'm going to mark right about here, and then I'm going to mark right about there and cut that all the way through. So I'm going to have this follow all the way out to the edge and cut that off. I don't think I don't have a pair of scissors, so I'm just going to use an X-Acto and a straight edge here.
Do we need it to extend to the edges?
No, cut it just a little bit short. So when I put this on, you'll see as this wraps around the edge that I'm going to, it's from this side all the way around to this side, but it doesn't go out to the edges. Okay. Now, to get this stuck in the first place, I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of glue again. So this is the third layer of glue that we've put on the back. I'm just going to spread that out. And I'm just going to use my finger to mold that and push into those spaces. So you can see I don't go all the way out to the edge. I'm short about 1/4 inch on both sides. And then I was just about ready to squirt a whole bunch of glue on my paper here. Then I'm just going to take my brush a little bit of glue here. Make sure I get into those edges, those corners. Lay this over on top. And I'm just going to burnish that to get it started. And then continue to add glue. I'm not going to go all the way out to the very outer edge of this. Can you say that one more time? Which side you put it on? That's fine. But I noticed that this was stuck a little bit, and one of the things about mulberry paper is that it's very thin, and so that the glue would actually go through that fabric. I shouldn't have done that because I got to turn it over again, but you can see that I'm not all the way out to the edge. That's fine, because when we put this down onto, when we glue it into our book, into the cover, then this is all going to get a whole nother layer of glue anyway. So we're looking just to kind of get it glued down, keep it out of the way. Set that aside for a moment. I'm going to do this one real quick. All right, how's that going? You're all ready to go. All right. The next part is to glue the headbands down onto your book, and so you'll see obviously that these are much wider than the book. That's fine. So what we're looking to do is you've used your bone folder and you've pushed down a line to get it really tight. That's where that sits on the top edge of your book right there. Okay, so then we're just going to put yet another layer of glue here, this time on top of the mulberry. Bring this in right to the top. I'm pressing down on it to get it to glue in tight. Got a little bit of glue that squeeged out at the top. I want to get rid of that so it doesn't glue my pages together. Just using my fingers and pushing it down, just getting it tight, a tight fit. Then you'll do the same thing on the other side. My tails are a little long here on this. I probably could have cut those about half of that, and so I think I'll do that with this one here. Just because that other one was so long. Don't want them to overlap too much. or at all, just because then it adds thickness to the backside, to the spine. Okay. Any glue that comes up at the end, make sure you get that wiped off. Once you're to that point, then you just use your book as a guide for your X-Acto knife. Cut right down the side, the edge of your book. Careful not to cut into your text block. Just use that. Go make a couple light passes. When I got out to here, I just pushed the knife down. I went from an angle down just so that I could push through that. So I think that was my third cut and it came off. I'm just trimming it down. There we go. Get that all pushed in. Make sure that it's still seated, that the glue is good and tight. We got these little flaps now that lay right over the top of that. And decorate it. Nice decorative touch to your book. Now you're getting ready to put the cover on your book. Want to make sure that we know which direction the grain is going. These ones here have, these are shorter pieces or smaller pieces, and their grains are going this way. These ones are longer pieces, and their grains are going this way. So, just want to make sure that I mark all of these boards so I know which way that grain is going.
This is looking so much better. Wow. I'm gonna try it. Do it again. I was like, he's right. Oh, he's right.
Practice, practice, practice.
Fucking good it looks.
That looks fabulous, and I'm glad that it's working.
I thought it was
I get better every time I teach this class too. You just keep getting better and better. When you make 1,000 books, you still get better and better and better. Caitlin.
on the video you made for the self-block text. Did you record the video and then do the voiceover?
Yeah.
Autumn and I were watching on that thing. She wants to also learn book fighting, so I've been.
You're just like,
helping her with some of that. I watched it, I was listening to the video. I was like, I think he recorded it after because I just hear him going.
It's like, bro, get on camera.
Right. Yeah. There's no classroom chatter, and then also I didn't expect it, but there was an ASMR quality to the paper thing too. I almost got rid of that entire soundtrack, and then I was listening. Actually, I got rid of part of it, and then I had to undo a bunch of times. Like I'd done a bunch of work, and I hit the undo button just so I could bring that back in because I loved the sound of the paper rustling underneath it too. Like, okay, no, I've got to include that. All right, so here's we're going to make the covers for these. The covers for these. Very similar to everything that we've done before. We're going to measure out our book. My book, so I'm just saying these words out loud so that you know what numbers I'm using as I go through this. Your books may have a slightly different dimension on it. Use your measurements. This is 115 millimeters wide that way. Now, I'm writing directly on the back side of this what's going to be a paste down. This is an end paper. It's going to get glued. Nobody's going to be able to see it, but this is going to give me my marks here. So very lightly, I'm writing 115 millimeters that way. This is 146.7 this way. On the 15 millimeter, or 115 millimeters, I need to add 3 millimeters to that. So I want my cover, I'm just going to write over that, to be 118 millimeters. I need 3 millimeters on the top, on the top and the bottom. When you're measuring your width here, make sure that you're measuring from the headbands. You don't want those headbands sticking out of the top. So lay your ruler down on top of it to see where those headbands are. It's 123 on 124 on this one. And I want that to be, that edge needs 6 more millimeters. So I have 3 millimeters on both sides. So I need to make this one 130 millimeters. This one would be, because there's no headbands on this one, I need to add the 6 to this, so 153. $185 plus 3, 88. Do those measurements make sense? So the top across, so from the left to the right, you only add 3 millimeters to it because you needed 3 millimeters out here. So this was 115 millimeters from left to right. I added 3 millimeters to it. That gave me 118. Because I'm only adding the 3 millimeters to the front side. The one on the front edge here, from the top to the bottom, I need 3 millimeters up here at the top, and I need 3 millimeters down here at the bottom, so that was 6 millimeters. So what was this, 147, so I added 3 to that. Or I mean, it was 147, I added 6 to that, that gave me the 153. So then I'm going to come to my book board, and I'm going to go out to the 118, making sure that my marks are running the same direction as, where is that, 1, 2, 3, that my marks, or that the grain is running in the same direction as the spine. I drew my line, and then I'm just going to measure it again, make sure it's in the right spot before I cut it. 118. It's actually at 117 there. I need to redraw my line just a little bit. Okay. Then cut that. You're going to cut your first board. Don't cut both of them yet. Cut that first one just to make sure that it's in the right space. So I need that underneath. Or I mean, only cut the first one so you make sure that's the right length. Beautiful when it works out the way that it's supposed to, right? When you measure it and you got just that 3 millimeter. Oh, that's tight. All right, then this one was 153. So 150, 1, 2, 3. Double check it. 153. Come down here at 153. Looks good. Three millimeters here all the way around. Oh, sweet. Now, I've got this one that's perfect, right? This is the right one. I'm going to put a star on it. This is the one I want to use. Then I'm going to match that up because it's perfect. Just use it as a template. And all I need to do is just trace around it. The hard part is done. Sit back. Enjoy yourself. And there we go. I was hoping I was going to get so lucky that that was going to be the right size. Nope. Toss it aside. Come back over here. Now it's time to. Then you just use your book to measure out your spine. If it feels a little wobbly, and you want to actually measure, you can do that. Mine is at. What is that? 8 millimeters. Double check that measurement. 8 and 8.
First time I was like, okay, so on a run. Friday, Cycles got lost. It's like the stuff that looks chalky. You know when like chocolate tastes kind of chalky because it's been out for a bit, but it's still perfectly fine? Yeah. Oh yeah. I like it when it's like frozen on out. So good. Except for Chinese. I don't believe in suffering actually. I don't know what it is, but I don't believe in it. Because I like the frozen on out.
So this is the back part right here. This is the hardcover, the spine. Now I just need to measure it up to my front or back cover here. Which one of this has stars? Make sure that I don't get rid of any of this.
Good. Every time I look over to see what you're fucking doing, I'm like, I have to do this at home. Shit. That's how you kind of kill someone or the fuck. Yeah, yeah. Dude, I thought I was going to be using it. That's not. Taking good look.
All right, 188 for this one. 85, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, it's very scary. I went straight to bed. I woke up. I was like, who's moving? Turns out. Oops. Like, I do get up at like 5, and I just like to get there. Yeah. I feel like a full like 2 hours to really mentally prepare for this thing around. I'm not even good at it too, so it's like, what's that preparation for? That's how I have a lot that goes on. So for me that I wake up in half an hour, I turn it off like. Yeah, exactly. No, it's okay. You'll like hear the live, and then you'll hear. It's only gonna get worse if you're so close to it. So you'll be like, oh, wait, let's come over. Right? I was like, I see. Yeah, it's like, well. I think the way that I usually set my alarms, yeah. No, it's okay, you can do it. See, that's
All right, this is why you double check what you're doing. So this is, I wrote down 124. This is actually 118. So when I add the 6, then that's the 124, and then I added the 6 to the 124. And I was like, look at this. That is ugly. That's bad. That's so. So then I got to come back and take 6 millimeters off of this, cut it down. And then I know, and then you can, then I will be able to.
It's also good that you like double check.
Right, you just keep double checking the whole way through, just to make sure. There we go. Ah, there we go. Got it. All right, now it's time to make the book cover. So a couple things here. I have a diagram, and looking at everyone's photographs, there is the corners are always challenging. And so what I want to do for the corners is to give you just a little extra fabric, so that when you fold over the tops, that it hides the corners. If you haven't had any difficulty with it, then you could probably stay at the 15 millimeters, but I'm going to 20 millimeters on this one, the whole way around. And then I'm also going to show you, actually, I'm sorry, I want you to stay at the 20 millimeters. With mitered corners, we're going to use 2 pieces of our book board. We're going to put them together, and then we'll draw our lines there. That gives us just enough space, or just a little extra fabric to wrap around. Everyone's is going to be like this. It doesn't matter what size of cover you're using. You need your 20 millimeters all the way around the outside of your back of your. These are the book boards, right? Front cover, the spine, and the back cover. 20 millimeters of fabric all the way around the outside, and then you need 8 millimeters of space in between the spine, and the covers. This comes from giving yourself 6 millimeters so that there's enough room to bend. And then it gives you 2 millimeters, which is the thickness of our bookboard. So, because we all have the same bookboard, that measurement will work for everyone. If you were using thick bookboard or thin bookboard, then that would end up changing a little bit depending on the thickness of that. But let's say you wanted to put like a really chunky cover on this. Then you have to give yourself extra room, extra fabrics so that it can close the way that it's supposed to. And so then that 8 millimeters would be adjusted for whatever size of the board you're using. But since we're all using the same one, we don't have to worry about that. So, does that make sense? Do I need to? Okay. Yeah? Okay. All right, so essentially what you're going to do then is you're going to take your books, your covers. I've got a little bit of extra mulberry that I need to trim down. You'll put your front cover. My suggestion would be is just to actually glue your front cover down, making sure that you've given yourself, I think this is 20 millimeters. This is actually 25. But if you were to lay your ruler at the top of it and just glue your bookboard down, but like position it here to make sure that you have enough space all the way around. And then draw your rectangle, glue this first piece down, and then work from there on the rest of them, giving yourself the 8 millimeters difference in between those, gluing them down. So I'll walk through this for this first one right here and talk my way through it. I've got, so I'm just going to make sure that I have enough fabric up here and on the sides. So when I cut this out, I've got enough to glue around it. That looks pretty good. There's my mark. I'm going to switch out from this skinny little brush to a wider brush. Let's put this somewhere right there. Oh, dang. This one has, I get to do it again. Look at that. Oh, yeah. Oh, I love this so much. Is anyone else like that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just the only one. Did anyone drive in from like Moore Park or Simi Valley today? Or anywhere? Okay. So, the hills were so green this morning. I've never been to Ireland, but that's what I pictured it. Like, it was so beautiful. And then the whatever those mountains are up by Santa Paula had snow on them. Ricky.
Fucking Vasquez Rocks? Like, no, Vasquez Rocks. You know where Vasquez Rocks is?
No.
It's up to 14.
Vasquez Rocks. On the 14th, it was covered in green, actually. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Like Ireland, literally. It's so good when it rains. I mean, I hope it doesn't catch on fire.
Oh no, but this mustard.
No, but like, no, yeah, but like in like a couple months.
I don't know how I got sidetracked by pulling this glue off, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, I wanted to ask any. But anyway, there we go. Oh. Okay, now I can glue this down. Yeah, so this is, oh wait, right here it is. So I measured mine and then cut that out the same width as the spine. Okay. And then the spine piece is cut to the same length as your covers, as the board book for your covers. All right. I think I'm going to need to refresh my glue here. Rebecca, did you have a comment about it being green? You looked at me like when I said it was green, and you're like,
I made the same observation on the drive.
yeah,
Very beautiful.
yeah, right. Okay, so not only was it green, but if you're driving out of the valley through Santa Susana Pass, there is a giant poppy burst right as you're leaving the valley. It is, it's just as orange. It's gorgeous too. So take a look at that. So keep your eyes up, you know. I-
Can you at least look at my?
yeah.
I don't know why I keep.
It's just the binding is a little loose. I know. So you made a new pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So part of why it's doing that is because there isn't a spot that's coming over the edge of that. Like those will hold those corners in tight.
Okay.
Yeah, it's small, and this paper is really it's not very flexible. So what I ended up having to do is when I got to, so let's say I started here, and then I came back to this spot. Here I went through, but I kept everything really loose, and then I started pulling it after I was able to get the needle back through that other spot. Because otherwise I could not get the needle, and so I had to pull it out a little bit. But the reason that it's doing this is just because there isn't the support on the edges here.
Okay. Maybe I can finick it and just tie a knot of it and wrap it around. So I don't like how it does that.
Nice what is it? What's it called? Library. Do you know that? The name of that?
Is that what it's called on the corner?
Yeah, where you fold it in and then fold the other for
I like that.
rounded over corners.
Thank you.
Yep. So I actually got pretty lucky. My binding here, that spine is 8 millimeters. So this piece that I cut off for the spine of my book is 8 millimeters wide. So I can just use that as my template.
Oh, that is lucky.
I got so lucky. And then here we go. So that's where it gets glued, and then here's where that space is. All right.
They still give me
Okay, real quick, I'd like to show you the corner cutting here. So I'm using just 2 scrap pieces of bookboard, putting them close to each other like this, just holding them together, marking this out so that it's roughly an equilateral triangle, about 45-degree angle. If I had my pencil line out, there we go. That gives us plenty of space. That's 4 millimeters on the edge. If you haven't experienced falling short on that edge, then don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you were having trouble getting those corners to cover, use 2 spacers like this.
I'm worried about that.
I don't want to pull it all the way through, you know? Like,
One last thing here. Well, one more thing. Not one last thing. We're a long ways from being finished. Hey, I remember I had this extra piece of mulberry and I'm like, I gotta get rid of that. But then I was too excited to get started, and then I totally forgot to take it off. So look, this isn't even glued to my book board. It's kind of a pisser right now. I'm like, But because this is paper here and this is paper right here, mulberry paper, I'm going to get bailed out, and then I'm just going to start gluing this. So it's going to set me back here just a little bit. And press it down.
I'm just gonna do his own mistakes with him. It's not my fault, definitely not.
All right. Now I'm back on track. And you glue it down the same way that you have with all of your other covers. Start with the top and the bottom first. Give yourself a little extra glue on those corners. Be careful right here on the edges. Be careful not to put any glue on the table. Pull on your bookboard tight. Book cloth, I guess, and wipe off any extra glue.
press it down first and once
Yeah. I'm going to press it down right now so that it has a chance to dry. Really hard press. You can see it's just a tiny little bit. I don't know if that's... There you go. I'm just coming right down that corner, and it bends it over just a tiny bit. You can also pull it in just a little bit.
What's so funny, Daniela? What's so funny, Daniela? Lighting.
You're
No, don't even help me. I don't need your help. Yeah, I get it. People will say like I think this is another like 500 ago. Like 390. I get excited when someone else is it's like you know what? I get excited when I say something so like you know you're probably too. Like you guys take it right out too. Did you Santa Clarita? And so want to be Irvine of the high desert. I think that's gonna be that. I'll tell you. Lancaster's gonna be up. We have Northrop Grumman, we have Lockheed Martin, but they all go to Court Hill because they don't want to live in Lancaster. Yeah. Which, okay, I kind of agree with her. We're gonna walk away. Anyways, come to Lancaster, 8,000. And Poppy Fields and I feel like I can't remember what's gonna drip down my neck. We have the boulevard now. They have no excuse. Purple blue sky. There's the blue
the extra.
It's just a tiny bit that's hanging over on those two edges. This one has a tiny bit there too. But I'm cutting it off on the inside so that you can't see it anymore. It's already,
Daniela's
it's
book are
already
recorded.
on your text. Yes, Danielle.
I didn't continue because I wasn't sure if I got this right.
Also, you can re-record Danielle's book.
Yeah, if you want.
You re-record if you want to, because you were recording. You can re-record Danielle's.
That's a little too big.
Okay, so.
It should only be 3 millimeters. This looks like it's about 6, so cut that right out to right to the. Well, actually, I mean, with this right here, you just mark it where this the tail is right there, and then just straight across. Whew. All right. So the next step here is just gluing this into your book. So I had a moment of truth here. Just closing it like I hadn't checked it in a long time, and then all of a sudden I thought, oh, I hope this fits, because I kind of forgot to double check my work, but it does. All of that pre-check when I was doing it, or double checking the whole way through, paid off. Now, this is open, and it's the rough cut and the book board. That's what the end papers do. So this is called a paste down. This gets glued into that space right there, and it covers it up. All right, and then you have this one on the other side that gets glued on that, and then it gets open, and then it's attached to the cover that way too. So you can see here, I don't have the head on this one, the head. So you can see straight down. Yours will have that in there, and so that'll help to fill in that space a little bit. So when this opens up, it opens up the way that it's supposed to. We don't want this glued all the way into the back of this, because when we go to open it, then it doesn't give it anywhere to move. So we'll glue it. We get it glued up towards the front. Has a little extra space, so that when you open the book, the back will bend once it gets formed here. Let me form that.
So you don't want to glue the spine first.
No, don't glue the spine in. You need that to be flexible. I'm just forming the book cloth just a little bit here. So I'll take my bone folder and just crease that so that it opens up the way that it's like the back of a book is supposed to. It's a little loose. I didn't get enough glue in there, I don't think. That might have been where that second spot was that I didn't glue tight. Okay, right. So on this here, glue the inside, your book board, and then put a piece of newsprint in between your paste down and the rest of the pages. Paint from the inside out so you don't get any glue to squish underneath. Ooh. Get this out of the way. Get as far away from your book as possible so that it doesn't, get glue on your book cloth. Position this so that it has about a 3 millimeter spacing all the way around. I'm pushing the glue because the paper has glue on it. I'm pushing the glue towards the inside of the book so it doesn't come squeezing out onto the book cloth. I'm just kind of pushing it away from the edges. There's a little bit of a wrinkle on that paper, but if I burnish it here, I can get rid of that. Okay. Looks good. Table's kind of dirty, so I'm getting stuff all over the book cloth, but it's not glue. Another piece of newsprint in there, something that's clean, doesn't have any glue on it, or at least wet glue. I'm holding it without opening it too far just yet because I want the I want that paper to get glued down tight. If I try to open it up too far, it'll just pull the backing away from, it'll pull the paper away from it. All right. And there you go. Now, this is because there's moisture in that glue. It's a good idea to press this for a little while. So putting something heavy on top of it, could be a stack of books, anything, just to keep it from warping out of shape. There we go. It's in good shape. There you go. So that's it right there.